Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to the world of sewing, smocking, pleating, all of that. This whole series is designed for people who are completely new to pleating and smocking and you want to jump in but you just don't know where to jump. Hopefully this series answers all of your questions and clears things up and makes it a little bit more comfortable for you. So if you are contemplating buying a pleater and you haven't quite made that purchase yet, because it's a pretty penny, I completely understand. What you can do just to make sure you like smocking before you go and buy a pleater and spend the money is you can pleat by hand. You can use, well, I think all the iron dots are gone. I don't think they're being made anymore, to my knowledge. What you can do instead is you can do a grid pattern. You can make your own grid. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's better than buying a pleater and discovering that you don't like smocking. And it does go. It's one of those things you do in front of the TV or whatever with just some music in the background and that you'll get through it. So what you do is you make your own grid. I have a whole other video on how to do that. Or you buy I have a file on my Etsy that has the grid already in it. Either way, get yourself a grid and you can smock that way or pleat that way. Or you can buy fabric that already has a grid built into it. So things like gingham. I recommend like a 1/4 inch gingham or 3/8 of an inch gingham. Those are good spacings for little ones. And that's how you can pleat, is you can just use the grid that's in there. And I have another video explaining how to do that. You could use things like dotted Swiss as well. It has use those little dots that are built in as your grid. Or you can buy a already pleated insert. Farmhouse Fabrics does sell them, and I will have those linked down below. And you could use a pre-pleated insert for garments like CC Taylor or CC Johnny. Those are great little, they're just adorable, and I have full-on sewing tutorials on both of those that are linked down below. Gosh, so many things to link. I hope I remember to link all these things. Any rate, another thing is you could buy yourself a completely done garment. Except for the smocking, and they're called ready to smock garments. So they're completely done except for that smocking. So you can sit down there and do your smocking and see if you enjoy smocking. I've never bought one of these garments before, but a woman, I believe her name's Sylvia, and her handler on Instagram is Delicate Stitches. I will have her Etsy store linked down below. I've heard wonderful things about her ready to smock garments. Like I said, I've never bought one, but I've heard amazing things about her garments. So buy one of those if you're interested and see if you like smocking. Now, maybe you've already taken that plunge and you've already bought a pleater. Where do you go from here? I have another video that explains what to do now. Regardless, if you're pleating by hand or with a smocking pleater, you're going to want to use mesmerized, I always mispronounce that, mesmerized thread. It's a thread that has a coating on it, and it just runs so nicely through your fabric. It's very strong and it just doesn't fray. It's lovely. So, also, how many rows do you pleat? Well, generally what you're going to want to do is you're going to pleat however many rows you want to smock, plus 2. 1 extra on the top and 1 extra on the bottom. And these 2 extra rows are what we refer to as holding rows. And it's a similar sort of concept that, like when you do you're doing a gathered skirt or a gathered sleeve, whatever, you're going to do 1 gathered row on the bottom of that seam and 1 on the top of that seam, just to help your gathers stay nice and in line. It's the same sort of concept. You're going to have 1 holding row on the top of your smocking and 1 holding row on the bottom, just to make it just makes everything flow better and go easier and look nicer with your stitches. It just holds those pleats in line for you as you're smocking. So now, do you interface your fabric or not? That's a question that is kind of your personal preference. There's no right and wrong here. It is sewing, you do you. If you're new to my channel, I say that all the time, and I definitely mean it. It is sewing, you do you. So what you can do if to figure out if your fabric needs interfacing or not is you can do a test piece. Run a test piece through your pleater and see if you like the look of those pleats. Run a test piece with some interfacing and see if you like the look of those pleats better. What the interfacing is going to do for you is going to plump up those pleats. Generally speaking, and again, it's your personal preference, but generally speaking, fabrics like cotton batiste and broadcloth are not going to need to be interfaced, whereas fabrics like silk Pignone, I mispronounced that one too. Generally that fabric is going to need to be interfaced, but again, it's sewing you to you. If you like the look of silk de Pignone without interfacing, go for it. But you can do a test piece either way and see what you like better. So, what are the best fabrics? So, how do you avoid going over bumps? Particularly if you're not pleating by hand, you're going through a smocking pleater. How do you avoid making bumps going over through seams? Well, first, you avoid having seams when you use your pleater. Even if you're doing a smock bishop, you can have that entire bishop pleated without any seams. And if you want to see the magic that is, I have a video that is linked down below that explains how to completely pleat a bishop with no seams, and it is delightful. It's a little bit extra time. It takes me about 30 minutes to pleat her up, but it is wonderful. And I mean, this is my third. I've got three and under, and I do take the extra time because it is just lovely. So if there's if you don't want to do that route, or if there's a scenario where you just can't avoid going over a seam, what I would suggest is doing a very, very tiny seam. I personally like to use a very tiny French seam. I know others will do a very tiny seam and then they'll just zigzag the raw edges. I know some other people, they won't do anything on their sewing machine, and instead they'll do a very tiny seam using a rolled hem on their serger. Like I said, I like the French seam route, whatever route you go. The reason that you're going to get a bump is that your seam is twisted as it goes through the pleater. Maybe the front of your seam went through facing forward, and then the back of the seam went through facing backwards, and so those are twists. And that's why you get a bump there. So you're going to want to make sure your seam goes through all one direction. It's easier to have that seam kind of back facing you as it goes to the pleater. And actually Gail Doan has a credit card trick. I saw that on a video from Farmhouse Fabrics where she uses a credit card to kind of drop that seam into a pleat. And I will try to find that video and link it down below for y'all. So then, what are the best fabrics to pleat and what fabrics do you want to avoid? Well, I have a whole video that goes over like every single fabric you can imagine. Super detailed, link down below. But just to sum that up, I absolutely adore cotton batiste. It is my favorite, like tried and true, smocking, hand embroidery, whatever, cut work. I love it. And it smocks beautifully. Particularly if you are new to sewing, Imperial Batiste is a super affordable option. It's 60 inches wide and it's about $6, $7 a yard. It's just super affordable, but it's a great quality. So being new to this, you may not be so confident that your garment is going to come out nice, like how you want it, whatever. But if you get lucky and it comes out great, it's made out of Imperial Batiste, which is a great quality fabric, and you're good to go. Like you kind of like look out, and you didn't spend a fortune, and all is well. Other fabrics I love are satin batiste, Nola. I just love all the batistes. I adore them. Other popular fabrics are cotton broadcloth. I don't dislike it, I just like the batiste better. Now some fabrics, when you talk about fabrics to avoid, it's not so much they won't fit through your pleater, it's that how do they look once they go through the pleater. Some of them, like if you have anything with a stripe on them, okay, so whether that's gingham or corduroy with like the stripe that's built into that weave, which you're going to want to be cautious of is how it goes through the pleater, because if it's not completely square and straight and all that stuff, it'll get a moire effect to it. And some people don't mind this, some people like this. I happen to be one that I don't care for it. Not to say that, it's personal preference, there's no right and wrong, it's not my preference. That's why I may sound like a snob, but when I say that I think that gingham should only be pleated by hand, that's just my personal preference and my belief. It may sound snobby, but that's just what I think. So anyway, so that's what you need to be like wary of. Now, what are the best patterns to you? I have a whole other video on how to do the best patterns for smocking garments for little ones. I have a ton of tutorials on this channel, whether that's Children's Corner or Creations by Michelle, Old Fashioned Baby, whatever. I've got a ton of tutorials, so check those out if you're having difficulty on one in particular. I probably do have that tutorial on my channel. So, oh, but that being said, the pattern that if you're brand new to this, you own hardly any patterns, if not 0 patterns, the one that I push the most, I have a ton of clicks on this link, the one that I push the most is CC Jamie. It is the best bang for your buck in my opinion. It's from like 3-month sizing all the way to 24 months. The sizing is really good on it, I found with all of my little ones. What was I gonna say? And you get a bubble, you get a yoke, like a bubble bottom, you know, you get a yoke pattern, you get a bodice pattern. So of course you can make the whole bubble thing. You can also take that yoke or take that bodice piece and make dresses out of them. And I have tutorials on how to do that. You get a collar piece in them, you get a couple different sleeves, like a girl sleeve, a boy sleeve. So it's just a great pattern, lots of different views. It's just a great bang for your buck. So I recommend that pattern above all others. And then how to add smocking to a non-smack pattern. Well, I have another video on how to do that. It is more simple than you may think. So now that you have your fabric pleated, you know, you've picked your fabric, you have it pleated now, well, how do you block it? Well, if it's a bishop, I would highly recommend getting the blocking board. That's what I use. I love it. I've used it for years. It looks brand new. And on the other side, it's a kind of a bonus. It has, you know, curves for your Madeira hem, which I have a video on how to do. God, I sound like a broken record. But and it also has some like a lace insertion sort of stuff, like hearts or whatever, lace shaping, that sort of thing. So it's a great value. It is expensive, especially it's expensive to ship it. So you may not want to buy that if you're new to this world. A more affordable option, then I don't know how much this costs off the top of my head, but Farmhouse does have a more affordable option that's like a piece of paper, and you're going to have to be more cautious with it, you know, pinning it to it since it is paper, but you can use that instead of this board. And what I would do if I had this is I would pin it to like your ironing board and use that to block a bishop. Now blocking something that is going under the yoke is a lot easier. So with that, with pinning it, even if you're brand new, I would highly recommend just biting the bullet and going with glass head pins. They are only a couple dollars more than a plastic head pin, but if you have a plastic head pin and you iron over top of it, you are likely going to melt that pin, and you have a high probability, if it's staying next to your fabric, it's going to get melted into your fabric and it can ruin your fabric. So just a couple dollars more, you don't have the headache of it melting. They're wonderful. If you do like this world of smocking and sewing and stuff, you're going to buy them anyways because you're going to get tired of the plastic pins. So just bypass them, do yourself a favor, and just don't even buy them. Now, some people do like to steam or starch their pleats, like if they have it all blocked, before they take those pins out and move it, they like to put some steam from their iron or spray it with starch. I personally don't do this. I'm not saying that steaming or starching is a bad route to go. It's just I don't do it. You can do it, see if you like it, and go from there. No right or wrong here. So then the other thing when I'm blocking is I'm only concerned with where those pleats are at the place that it's going to be sewn. Okay, so for example, on a bishop, it's going to be sewn around the neckline. Okay, so I'm not so much concerned with getting the pleats on the bottom evenly distributed. I can do that when I'm smocking it. It's no big deal. They'll just move around. It's no big deal at all. To each their own. So generally what I do is I will do the length first, whether that's a yoke, you know, something that's a flat length, not curved like a bishop, or I will do the length of a bishop. Either way, I will get the length correct first and not worry about the pleats at all. Then I will take it and I will block it, and I will distribute the pleats where that seam is going to go evenly. and I will get those right, okay? And then I will worry about the pleats at the bottom, getting those evenly distributed. I find that if you try to do all three at once, you just go around in a circle and give yourself a big old headache. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. I've been trying to bust these videos out. My voice is a little bit harsh now. Hoarse now. Anyway, so now the question is, do you smock first and then construct your garment? I know, it's highly debated. Or do you construct first and then smock? There is no right or wrong here. It is completely personal preference. I happen to like constructing first and then smocking if at all possible. You can do this with a bishop, you can do this with smocking underneath the yoke. But I like the latter. There's no right or wrong. Don't let somebody tell you that just because they've been doing it for 40 years and they smock first and then sew that must be the route that you take. You take the route that works for you. And if it's smocking first and then sewing, then so be it. That's great. There are some benefits to that. It is easier, a little bit easier to handle since you're not handling an entire garment. You're only handling like a piece of fabric. Now, the benefits to constructing first and then smocking is that particularly if you want your stitches, if you want some stitches like a cable, like for example a cable stitch or something, right underneath the seam of where that smocking is going to go, it is so much easier to have your garment completely constructed first and then put those stitches exactly where you want to go. If you already have those stitches in there and then you go to sew it, it can be really hard to get that seam because you can't quite see those stitches anymore. Your fabric's covering them up. So it's really difficult to get that seam right where those stitches are. You're more likely to be 1/8 of an inch off, or here or there, or have a gap, or just have some unevenness. The other pro of having your garment completely constructed and then to smock is that it's completely constructed. You have no raw edges. There's no threads all over your laps. There's no, that's part of my thing. It is a little bit more cumbersome to handle because it is all completely together, but nothing's perfect. So then when it comes to blocking and sewing to your garment, I highly recommend freezer paper. Until discovering this method, I back smocked. I used a ton of pins. I tried using the sew line glue. I tried all sorts of methods. I tried hand basting it in there, and none of those methods, at least that I found, worked as well as freezer paper. This stuff is magic. You simply just iron it on to where that seam is going to go, right on top of your pleats. You iron it right on top of your pleats, wherever that seam's going to go, and then you just sew over it. And you only need to sew over it once. So whether you're attaching some piping and you're getting your machine stitches in those pleats through the piping, or you're joining, fabric, you're joining a seam, you only need one row of machine stitches. And the freezer paper just holds your pleats in place so they don't move underneath that presser foot as you're sewing and make a hot mess, because otherwise they can move around, they can make a gap, it can just look untidy at your seam. And the freezer paper just locks it all in. You iron on top of it. I have another video that goes over the details of it, but it's delightful. There's no residue. It's perfect. So then what do you smock with? Simply put, you smock with whatever the heck you want to smock with, because it is sewing and you do you. The very common choice, a very popular choice, is to have three strands of embroidery floss. That's the go-to, common, popular, and there's nothing wrong with it. Very beautiful. You can make some really great things out of that. But you don't limit yourself to just DMC or whatever brand you want to use. Don't just limit yourself to, embroidery floss. You can use pearl cotton. Particularly if you're a beginner, you may find that pearl cotton is easier. You can use cotton border. You can use tatting thread. You can use whatever. Just try it. If you like it, you use it. I do have another video linked down below on some ideas, some inspiration on what fibers to use for smocking. And the other thing is you can put in some beads with that. You can put in, incorporate buttons into your smocking design, whatever. You do what you want to do, because it is sewing. It's, like don't allow somebody else to limit yourself. If you want to do it, you go ahead and do it. There's no smocking police that's gonna come get you. What needles do you use? I have another video on what needles I use. I am a little bit unconventional when it comes to needles, but they work for me, so I use them, and that video is linked down below. So now you have all your smocking done. When do you pull out those smocking threads? Well, if you're somebody that you smocked first and then you constructed your garment, you need to wait till your smocking is done and it's into your garment. You need to wait till it's into that seam. If you've done the reverse, if you've done your constructing first, then you need to wait till your smocking is done. Basically, wherever route you go, you need to have your smocking done and it needs to be constructed into your garment. Then you can remove those pleating threads. Now, last but not least, how do you wash these suckers? Well, the majority of mine are out of cotton batiste, and I have had no problem putting them through the washer and dryer on both gentle cycles. I haven't had any issues with that at all. Of course, if you have a different experience, by all means, put them down in the comments below. And that is kind of the whole thing in a nutshell, summed up. Hopefully this is helpful. If you do have any questions, or if you have anything to add to the conversation, by all means, please put them down in the comments below, and hopefully that will help somebody out who is just starting into this world. I remember when I was just starting smocking, just being kind of overwhelmed, and how does this work, and how does that work, and hey, just jump in. It's just some fabric. If the worst that can happen is you ruin some fabric or you break a needle, and neither of which you're gonna survive. It'll be okay. Come to the channel and we will work it out. Ask the question, whatever. We will help you along with it. So I hope this was helpful. If y'all have any questions, again, put them down in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. And as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope to catch y'all next time. We did it, Daisy. We did it.